Hello, everybody, and welcome to the session on reducing cost per lead on LinkedIn ads. By way of a quick introduction, my name is Sharon McClintock. I am the Senior Content Lead at Lumar. For those of you who may be unfamiliar, Lumar is an enterprise-scale website optimization platform. We help our users analyze, monitor, and improve the technical aspects of their website. So that's everything from technical SEO and site speed all the way to website accessibility compliance. I've been in the marketing and comm space throughout my whole career. I've worked across a variety of industries as varied as architecture, healthcare advertising, arts nonprofits, and of course, B2B tech, which I absolutely love. I think that the B2B SaaS space is genuinely very exciting right now. So we have lots to cover in this session and not a ton of time. So please do feel free to add me on LinkedIn after this. I'm always happy to chat more about this. I love to hear ideas and experiences from other marketers. I would love to hear from you. So a quick overview of today's agenda. Today, we will be looking at my own case study of reducing cost per lead on LinkedIn lead gen ads by 53% last year. We'll touch a bit on CPL benchmarking and what makes a good CPL. And then we'll dive into some actionable tips and tricks across 5 key areas of campaigns for you to optimize if you are also on a mission right now to reduce your cost per lead. So as I mentioned, the starting point for this presentation was a review of our own CPL performance on LinkedIn over the past year and change, wherein we managed to reduce our cost per lead on our LinkedIn lead gen campaigns by 53%. Obviously, you can see in the chart Q1 versus Q4, just a nice steady decline in that cost per lead. Love to see that. I will say that we have managed to retain those lower cost per leads. I just wanted to I just wanted to provide like a nice snapshot that really showed the improvement over time. So first, before we dive into recommendations, let's briefly touch on benchmarks and what makes a good CPL on LinkedIn. Apologies that I cannot remember where I first heard this quote, but I really agree with the insight here that your best CPL benchmark is going to be your own historic data. And that is because your CPL averages are going to vary extremely widely based on your industry, geography, audience targeting criteria, and importantly, your offer type. For example, a demo request lead or a sales call lead is likely going to be much more expensive than an ebook or a webinar lead. And we'll talk a bit more about why that is later on. That said, you will often see CPL averages reported in various white papers and such that are like $150 to $500 on LinkedIn per lead. I just want to say, don't be scared off when you see those ranges published. In my own experience, it is very, very possible to have your average CPLs come in below that point. So let's talk a little bit about how to do that. Of course, these recommendations are based on my own experience in reducing CPL, so your mileage may vary, but I hope that you find some inspiration here and some ideas to start experiment with these different types of optimizations. But as always, just constant iteration and testing is always going to be really key as you work on reducing your cost per lead. So just a note on methodology, when I was looking back and reflecting on how we retrieved our results, I looked back at some of our top 10 best performing lead gen ads. And for the purposes of this conversation, that's the ones that have the lowest CPLs, because that's our goal here. And I looked for commonalities across those campaigns to create a set of 5 key areas for optimization when you want to reduce CPL. So we will dive into each one of these in more detail, but they are ad creatives, offer appeal and timeliness, building hyper-targeted audiences, your bidding strategies, and monitoring some of those preliminary indicators like form conversion rates and CTRs. So let's start simple with the ad creative optimizations. These are some of the common traits that I've noticed in low CPL ad campaigns. So this first one should not be surprising to anybody. The larger format ads do tend to perform better in my experience than the more old-fashioned, smaller horizontal ads. Of course, the larger formats are just naturally more thumb-stopping, they're more attention-grabbing, so they can help you get more clicks, which of course is the first step in getting those leads. That said, we did have 30% of our top ads in the group that were the smaller horizontal ads, so it's not impossible to get low CPLs with that ad format, those dimensions, but I would definitely err on the side of the larger dimension ads. So looking next at the ad CTA text, in our top performers group, 50% used the download CTA, 30% used sign up, and 20% used register. As you might imagine, that aligns pretty closely with the offer types that were really high performing, 50% ebooks and 50% lead magnets, but we're going to dive into offers in a moment. So this takeaway I found quite interesting because I feel like you often hear advice to always include photos of humans in your ads because they're meant to perform better. But in this top performing ad group, I found that we had a completely equal distribution of ads with photos of people and ads that just relied totally on illustrations. And now this one on the ad copy, this might be a little controversial, and definitely test this one. It was surprising to me, but in our top performers group, I found that 90% of them actually had longer intro text lengths. So above that 150 characters mark. After the 150 characters, of course, you get that read more button just auto added on LinkedIn. So people have to click that button, which you can be charged for, to actually expand your full text so it's not the truncated version. It may be that for these particular offers or for some offers in general, the added context that's provided in the longer version text just provides that extra bit of information, that extra bit of motivation to really convince the audience to hit submit on the form. But definitely be careful with this one in case you are getting charged for those read more clicks. A/B test it on your own campaigns before committing to any specific text length. Okay, so ad creative, of course, is only one piece of the puzzle. What you're actually offering in your lead magnet matters just as much. I was quite interested to see that 70% of the top performing ads had some kind of a timeliness hook or a news hook aspect to them. So by this, I mean offers like SEO for Black Friday or 2024 SEO trends, something that is like tied to a specific point in time. Still, 30% were more evergreen offers. And with our evergreen content, we do update it regularly so that the content is fresh, but the topic itself just doesn't have that immediate time-related hook. If your team has capacity to create more offers with the time-based hook throughout the year, I would definitely recommend it. But we did still have 30% of the ads in the evergreen category. Okay, so we touched on this already in terms of the offer/lead magnet types. This shouldn't be surprising, but the lowest CPLs are, of course, going to be associated with offers that require the least amount of effort from the prospect. So a webinar sign up or an ebook offer, that doesn't require that much like thought or consideration. If the prospect is interested in the topic, they are like, okay, I can just get this ebook immediately. Meanwhile, like an offer to schedule a sales call or a demo call, or even attend a free live event, they're going to have to think about their schedules. Do they even have the bandwidth to add any single additional meeting to their calendars right now? So anything that you can do to just reduce the friction between the prospect wanting the offer and getting the offer is likely going to lead to more form submissions, meaning a higher form conversion rate. That means fewer wasted clicks that you're paying for, and then therefore lower CPL. This concept around reducing friction also applies to your forms themselves, and which form fields you mark as mandatory. If you can, require the minimum necessary fields on that form, even if they're being auto-populated by LinkedIn. If you start including, like revenue and telephone number, that might cause hesitation in the user because they maybe don't want to get phone calls. So they won't necessarily definitely click submit on that form. Also, avoid making people manually type anything into the form fields if you can. It's just another added hurdle to them actually hitting submit on the form field. Okay, so the third lever is one of my favorites to adjust for CPL optimization, and that is your audience and really creating alignment between your audience and your offer. I love building hyper-targeted audiences aligned to each offer. It really feels like playing matchmaker. You're trying to find the perfect match between your audience and your offer. So when they see your ad, there's just a real spark there. And of course, they want to click on it and get your offer. It feels like it was built just for them. And in a sense, it was. So let's look at an example of that. So as you can see, the offer here is for a webinar that covers SEO and the customer journey. So rather than just using a broad job title-based audience, I included a skill stack for people who have relevant job titles, relevant interest, customer journey related skills, and SEO related skills. So you can see here, the form conversion rate for this ad alone across every audience that it was used with is 27%, which is already good because LinkedIn says that their average form conversion rate is 13% on the platform. But when you look at this ad with the custom built audience for this offer, we get a whopping 40% form conversion rate, which in my experience is really good. Quick note on the skill stacking method. One way to get hyper-specific with your audience targeting and align it to your offers is to use the skill stacking method, which is basically just using and rules rather than or rules on the target skills or other target criteria. So as I mentioned, skills SEO and skills that are related to customer journey, not one or the other. Obviously, it makes it more likely to show your ad to people who are interested in both sides of this topic, and therefore it's probably going to give you higher CTRs and hopefully higher form fills as well. So next up, let's cover bidding strategies. Just some general bidding strategy tips. I never use auto bid in my campaigns. I always use manual CPC bidding. This gives you more control over the initial building blocks of your CPL performance when your cost per click is lower. As long as you are maintaining those strong form conversion rates, which we will talk about in a moment, you're going to pay less per lead. And when you use this manual CPC bidding, there's no limit on how low you can bid. Obviously, if you're bidding down to $1 on LinkedIn, you're probably not going to be winning any auctions. You're probably not going to get many impressions or clicks, but you can likely start your bidding below where you typically bid now. And then if you're not getting enough impressions, or if LinkedIn is struggling to reach your daily campaign budgets, you can just gradually increase your CPC until you find what I call your minimum viable CPC bid for that campaign. So I was initially a bit nervous about lowering our bids too much because I was concerned our lead volume would drop, or the lead velocity or the speed at which you're acquiring leads could drop. And I do see some, as you're doing those initial adjustments and seeing how low you can go, you're not going to get leads as quickly. So if you have an event coming up in a week, maybe you have less room to experiment with this minimum viable CPC strategy. But in general, I did not see any decrease in the lead quality. And that makes sense because you should be selecting your audience targeting criteria and your exclusion criteria in a way that your ad just shouldn't be shown to anyone who you would consider a poor match for your product or service or a low quality lead. So that's another reason why it's really important to get your audience targeting right. But I'm just one person. I just work on my own campaigns. So for this presentation, I reached out to one of the best LinkedIn ads experts who I know, and that is AJ Wilcox, who many of you may know as the host of the LinkedIn Ad Show, which is a great podcast, and the founder of B2 Linked Agency. So because he's on the agency side of things, he's worked on LinkedIn ads across a lot of different companies. He's built tons and tons of lead gen campaigns on LinkedIn, and he had this to say. He said, your LinkedIn reps may try and convince you that if you're bidding low, you're decreasing the quality of your audience. But over many millions of dollars that he spent on the platform, he can tell you that is not true. Thank you very much for that, AJ. And I definitely recommend checking out his show. It is just a goldmine of good LinkedIn ads tips. So if you don't want to sacrifice lead volume or lead velocity in terms of your lead acquisition as you're working on finding that minimum viable CPC bid, you might want to consider building out audience segments that are aligned to different CPC median data. You can ask your LinkedIn ads rep for which criteria they have CPC benchmark breakdowns for and see which other ways you might want to slice and dice your audience segments according to CPC averages. It's a little bit more work because every time that you create an audience, you then have to duplicate it across all of your CPC aligned geo groups or other criteria groups, but it can help you get the most bang for your buck if you know reliably that you can consistently bring in a certain percentage of your leads that are likely going to have the lower CPLs from certain criteria that you've split it down by. Just a note of warning here, if you're working for a sales-led organization, obviously you definitely need to align with your sales team. If you've got more sales reps who handle leads in certain countries or certain locations, you want to make sure you're not starving that group just because those leads are more expensive. You should just create like a simple forecasting model and make sure that your budget allocation is getting what you need in terms of lead location or lead, whichever other criteria, so that you're getting the right leads from the right places in the right quantity. So the last thing that I want to chat about here is just keeping an eye on some of those preliminary stages, like form conversion rates and CTR. So form conversion rates have a direct impact on cost per lead because math. So if you're running CPC campaigns, then you're only being charged when somebody actually clicks on your ad. But then the click is somewhat wasted if the person doesn't actually hit submit on the form. You're still paying for the click, but you're not getting your actual desired result or a lead. So that will inflate CPL across all other leads generated by that campaign. So optimizing for your best form conversion rates will have the knock-on effect of providing you with lower CPLs. CTR has less of a direct impact on CPL, but it can contribute to the pace at which you're acquiring leads, because of course somebody first needs to click on your ad before they can fill out the form. So the more people who are clicking, the more potential form fills that you have. I try not to stress out too much about CTR at the start of a lead gen campaign, especially if I'm in that stage where I'm trying to find the minimum viable CPC bid. But of course, I feel better when it's higher, because that suggests that I've done something right in terms of my audience offer alignment and my creatives. So if your CTR is good, but your form conversion rate is low and your CPLs are coming in really high, that could indicate that your creative plus offer plus audience alignment is solid, but you might need to look into optimizing your form. Again, whether that's changing the text on the form or reducing the number of fields that are required or removing any kind of manual inputs that are needed on the form. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on this. No, I don't think so. There's obviously so much more to talk about in terms of CPL optimization, and I would happily connect with anybody on LinkedIn after this presentation. Just mention this talk so I know where you came from. And again, love to connect with other marketers. My LinkedIn profile URL is there if you need it. And yeah, thank you so much.